Hey folks, Stu here at The View. Slightly different format today because the press conference is on and we didn't want to get caught without the press conference. You'd have to excuse this as well because Windows. So we're going to do this a bit differently. We had the new stuff done this morning. There was no point in talking about it in much detail without knowing what was going to be said at the press conference, which has just finished. They've moved to the embargo stage of the press conference now. And the kind of questions came up that you would expect to come out, what Leeds have done during the break, the change of systems that we've seen over the last couple of matches, transfer window stuff, which Jesse's pretty coy on, as well as links with players leaving the club, loans, main transfers, and then how we're progressing leading into the Manchester City game. Just want to say a couple of hellos because there's some people here that aren't normally here. So we've got Patrick from upstate New York. How are you doing? Nippers here as usual. Will and Mugger are all here. Folks, thank you for joining and having a chat with me. So we're going to just start off. We will cover the news that came out as well today because we had the video done and ready to go out. Then by the time the video was ready to go out, press conference was starting. So kind of just back off a little, take a second and have a little look. So first off, we'll just talk about injuries. And Jesse was asked about the injuries, and it looks pretty good heading into the City game. Matthias Klich was missing last night, mostly, he said, because of the virus that's in the club at the moment and is causing a few issues. He said hopefully he's back in training this week. Illan Meslier has a test tomorrow. That test will determine if he is okay to resume full training. He has been doing his own stuff. And what Jesse Marsch said about glandular fever is it's a balancing act between keeping the player active and also managing against chronic fatigue, which glandular fever can unfortunately do to you. So he said they're balancing that up and they're keeping an eye on it. But fingers crossed, they're expecting the test tomorrow to go well. Should that test go well, Meslier will be back in training this week, which would be great to see. Stuart Dallas had another surgery on his leg, which was a fully expected surgery. Nothing surprising. It's a job to go in and clean up the area. Said it went really, really well, and they're expecting him. He is on course, all going well. Crescencio Somerville back on the pitch today, and he is back in training, and he said everything's going fine. They just were a bit cautious with him. And Lewis Sinisterra is on track, but will be missing for a couple of more weeks, according again to Jesse Marsch. Asked about Cooper, why he wasn't there, and Jack Harrison. He said Cooper has a small calf issue, nothing major, and Jack Harrison has a slight adductor injury. Both of them are expected to be fine for the game against Man City next weekend, which is good. The stuff from Matthias Klich came up because a couple of reports, and in today's news as well, we would have covered it. According to Foot Mercato, the journalist Sebastian Dennis, he said that Matthias Klich is 95% done to DC United. It's nearly there. However, Jesse was asked about it, and he said that there's been a lot of talk about it. He said that Klicky is one of his favorite players within the squad. I think he said he played something like 24 out of 28 games that Marsch has been around for. They've not all been starts, which is possibly part of the issue. But he said he is a personality that he likes. Contrary to rumors that the relationship between the two of them was strained. The Athletic did say this a few weeks ago, that the relationship between the two was poor. But according to Jesse, and you can say he would say this, but he has said publicly that the relationship between the two of them is very good. It's an incredibly open and honest relationship. And he said he doesn't think it's time for the player to go. He would like him to stay around, but there's other factors at play with this as well. And basically said he hasn't dropped tools. He hasn't done anything. He's been fantastic. His attitude's been great, and he's worked hard. And he said, he wants to keep him around the place if he can, but that's not necessarily his call to make, and understands why the player would want some more time. So looking then on the break, and he was asked about what they've covered over the break, and he said the players and the club have invested heavily in fitness work to get the players very, very sharp. We've seen a couple of players go down over the last couple of games with a bit of cramp here and there. And Jesse said that a lot of that is just down to players' legs being a bit heavy from the amount of fitness work they've done. That will be tapered off now, and they'll work into more set play stuff and more phase of play work on the pitch to get them ready for the Manchester City game. Matteo Joseph came up in conversation as well about knocking on the door and will he get his chance. And he said, well, it's interesting because he spoke a while ago about Chris Somerville, and Somerville was knocking on the door. And now here we are in a situation where Matteo Joseph has had a fantastic season, has an ability to score goals, but not just score goals, but score goals in numbers and clumps. He's got a couple of braces and a couple of hat-tricks so far this year. And he said he is knocking on the door similar to Cree. They've worked with the player. I think he said himself this week, Joseph is working under the wing of Rodrigo. He said that he's actually watched an awful lot of Rodrigo when he was a kid growing up in Spain. And Rodrigo was playing at Valencia and with Spain, the goals that he scored, and he's learned a lot from that and is now learning an awful lot from working closely with the player, a potential replacement for him. Mark Jackson came up then, and there's rumours today in a couple of places, but I'm flicking through my notes here and having a quick look. According to Football Insider, Mark Jackson is in line to become the new MK Dons manager. According to them, it is all but done. He has been offered the position, but they're negotiating a contract at the moment. Jesse Marsch asked about Jacko, and he said, put it simply, he has a huge amount of respect for him. And without Mark Jackson coming into the Leeds coaching staff last season, Leeds would not have maintained their position in the Premier League. He said he was vital in the early stages to getting the staff that came in and Jesse Marsch up to speed on not only the players, but the club top to bottom. Jackson's a long history of Leeds, from being an ex-player as well. And he said that he understands why he's being looked at by other clubs, that he's a top player. And he said he reckons he could be a massive person in football and has a big future ahead of him. But he said it's not his place to talk about where Mark Jackson goes, and that's his job and his news to talk about. And Jesse won't discuss that, but he said he has a massive amount of respect for the man. As does everyone. I mean, you can see the young players and how they fit with Mark Jackson from the 23s, and you can see it in Academy Dreams. There's a close bond there. And I said before, he's been hugely important to bringing the young players through. So credit to him on that. Asked about the transfer window, Jesse just pretty much outright just said, I'm not talking about it. And you're going to hear me say a lot more over the next period of time that I'm not going to talk about it. He said that there's stuff going on in the background that Victor and Rads are busy. He said, but he wants to focus on the pitch and the players that he's got right now. He said, you'll hear a lot of things. You'll ask a lot of questions over the next couple of weeks. But you'll hear me say, I'm not talking about it a lot more. He doesn't want the press conferences to become just talking about transfer news. But he said he wants to focus on the team. Asked about loans and players coming into the club. Loans out of the club. And he's at Cody Dramé especially. He said there's ongoing discussions around the young players at the club and how Leeds can best modify those players to get the best out of them in the future, whether that's monetary and selling them down the line or just making them better for the team. He says a lot of players there that are showing promise and are showing signs of growth. And he said they need to look at this and figure out the best development for them. Is it going out on loan now and getting games, or is it staying in the under-21s and working with that group? Asked about Cody specifically, he said that he has been fantastic over the last couple of weeks, has shown a huge amount of energy, has looked energized, and has been very professional over this period of time. He said the key thing for him now is going to be how can they push him on to be a big player for Leeds. He thinks he's got a big future at Leeds, and he thinks he'll be a big, big player for Leeds. A lot of rumors suggesting Cody wants to leave. Hopefully that's been addressed. He would need to play more games, I think, if that stuff is to go away. Cody Dramé clearly sees himself as a starting player or playing minutes off the bench at least. He has looked good in the 21 games this season. I think he looks spectacular in the 21s, but there's clearly some talent in there. His crossing, by the way, his crossing ability is outstanding. I think he's a fantastic crosser. There's a winger in there if there's not a fullback anyway. So, yeah, interesting one about Cody. Will he stick around or won't he? And then they just kind of moved on to talk about the Manchester City game. And he said that if you look at Brentford the first half of the season, they figured out ways to go to Manchester City and get a result. And he said, we'll be looking at that. He said, even the best teams in the world have their weaknesses. And it's about us focusing on what their weaknesses are and then how we can actually put a game plan in place to go at those weaknesses and cause them problems. He says that Leeds have progressed an awful lot since the heavy defeat last season to Manchester City. And he said he has a huge amount of respect for them and Pep Guardiola. But we have shown this season that when we go up against the top six, that we can get a result. And we'll be looking at focusing on that. Asked about Pep Guardiola and the praise he's given Pep in the past. Basically, Jesse just said the big thing about Pep is not only his ability to get results, but also his ability to manage big, top players and form a team out of those players. And he said that's been a massive part of it as well, how he gets that. Asked about squad size as well. He said that Pep likes to work with like a 20-man, 18 to 20-man squad. Bielsa was the same. Bielsa pretty much outright said he wanted 18 senior players and would, cover the rest of that with the younger players. Nothing unusual to hear that. If you also look at most of the top managers in the world, they're like pretty compact squads. I think 18 is a bit small, personally, known Leeds injuries history. I think a 20, 22-man squad is probably the best of seniors that you want to have, and then a couple of young players in and around that as well, especially for cup games and rotations. He was asked about, is Willy Gnonto in line to play against City? With the injuries over the last couple of weeks, Willy has got a huge amount of exposure, and he's been great. He's been really, really good. Jesse was asking about this, and basically what he's kind of said is he has every chance of starting that game. He's been really, really good. They're watching his development. They're keeping an eye on it. He said that Leeds need to look at the areas in Manchester City where Leeds can make them feel uncomfortable and then go and capitalise on those, similar to what Brentford did as well. Erling Haaland obviously came up in conversation. He's been talking himself about how excited he is to go to Elland Road, being born in Leeds and his father playing for Leeds. Jesse said that, and obviously Jesse Marsch has managed to buy as well, so that's something there as well. And he said that basically when the fixtures were announced, Erling texted Jesse and said he was excited for Boxing Day, and Jesse responded to him by saying he had his permission to have a slight hamstring injury on that day, which would be great for us, but it's not going to happen, I don't think so. That's unfortunate. Moving on then, he said that he knows that Erling Haaland has Leeds in his heart, and that's something that will actually motivate him, and the fact that he's playing against a former coach as well, that will motivate him. Jesse said, but this will also be something that motivates Jesse. So they're both in this together. He said he knows an awful lot about where he likes to be. They've looked at the runs that he likes to make. He's very powerful running into the box and running into key areas. And what Leeds have looked at are the areas where he likes to be, likes to play, and those areas where he likes to make that run. And then Leeds' job is to minimize those opportunities to make those runs into those areas. Looking at Leeds' back four last night, and if Diego Llorente is anywhere near the pitch, he will absolutely terrorize Leeds. And having a plan around stopping him running isn't going to work because Leeds have no pace in the back line. So that's got to be a problem. But something they are keenly aware of and will have to keep an eye on. The big thing for me with Haaland is just stop him from getting the ball. This will come down to crosses, balls being played into areas. It's our midfield has to do a good job and our front line has to do a good job on pressing and cutting out those passing lanes into Haaland. That's how you nullify Haaland. Trying to stop Haaland running into an area, probably not going to work that well. So that's one to keep an eye on. And then finally, he was asked about the World Cup and the players coming back. And he said that usually with World Cups, they kind of rule of thumb is players will get 3 weeks rest when they come back from a World Cup. He said that in this situation, if you look at Man City, they brought their players back pretty much straight away, which is probably not ideal. Leeds gave their players 10 days rest before they brought them back in. And it's a strange one. He said he does think it will cause players this season to burn out a bit earlier than normal. I think Pep said something this week about saying he has no players available for the Leeds game pretty much at the moment. And he absolutely will have. Even his reserve side is probably as strong as our first team. So you'll have to keep an eye on that. The last thing that he was asked about was that there was a change in shape in this 4-3-3 and why Leeds have changed to a 4-3-3 system. Now, a 4-3-3 system isn't a huge, step away from the narrow 4-2-3-1 that he plays. You got a 3-man midfield, one sitting and 2 in front, and then you got the 2 wingers that Jesse plays tucked in. Anyway, it's pretty much a 4-3-3 anyway. But they've gone to a more definitive shape on a 4-3-3 and said basically what this allows Leeds to do, it gives us more options that when we're pressing half of the pitch on one side, that we can cover that far side of the pitch as well. He said it gives us more opportunities to do that, and he said it helps us counter spaces earlier and easier. He said, if you look at some of the goals we conceded last night, he said we're still working on that, and you can see those areas that we've conceded goals on, that we've conceded in the past, and we're working on those areas. The big thing for me would be the fact that the similar players were playing when those goals started to go in. Again, Llorente. I'm just going to say it. It's Llorente. But he said it gives them more chance to manipulate the game, manipulate the pitch. And a 4-3-3 is a pretty flexible system that can operate into a 4-2-3-1. It can go to 4-5-1 as well. There's loads of options with a 4-3-3 as long as they're tuned into it. Somerville will be back, hopefully, for the City game as well. So that'll give us better options from wide areas as well. So it was an interesting one, an interesting press conference. It's going to be interesting to see what Leeds do going into the Man City game. And then hope that all the players that he said should be fit for the game are back fit in time for that match. So that's pretty much it. But moving on real quickly, just wanted to cover off some of the news items from today that we never got a chance to talk about. And according to the Athletic, Leeds are keeping an eye on Kai Wagner. The Philadelphia Union left back has been linked with Leeds during the summer. And the 25-year-old is out of contract, but there is a deal in place potentially for another year. He was in the MLS Team of the Year last year, and Jesse Marsch is a fan of him and has been speaking with the Philadelphia Union manager in the summer. They wanted to hang on to him because they thought they'd get a run at the MLS Cup. They did. They got to the final. And now it's looking like Leeds are keen to bring in Wagner. We've seen Rafael Guerrero. We've seen Parisi from Empoli. Even this morning, Jesus Vasquez was mentioned again with a possible £4.5 million move. So there's a lot of left backs all of a sudden now being discussed about coming into Leeds. You would like to think that they've identified that as an issue. Junior Firpo coming on last night, again, showed the weaknesses on that left-hand side of the pitch when he is there. Same with him and Llorente on the same side of the pitch. It's a worry. So it'd be interesting to see if Leeds make any move on that. Mark Jackson, we've already talked about. So again, according to Football Insider, Mark Jackson to MK Dons is all but done. And then according to Foot Mercato, they reckon that Matthias Klich move to DC United is 95% done and dusted. Jesse Marsch, obviously in the press conference, has been a bit more coy on it and kind of said, I want him to stay. I don't want him to go. but we'll have to wait and see. So there's probably some fuel there. And then you just look at the game last night. We talked about the game last night. It's really was a 2-half game. First half was slow tempo, but we were comfortable, passed it well. I thought Robin Koch looked fantastic in the first half. I thought that Willie Gnonto had an excellent game again, and I thought Brendan Aronson the first half was excellent. Second half, then things start to fall apart. Diego Renda comes onto the pitch, and within 10 minutes, Leeds conceded 3 goals. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. And the second half was a disaster. The issue that worries me, and Jesse's touched on in the press conference as well, is we're conceding the same kind of goals. It's a counter-attack first. That's the one we've been conceding since pre-season. And then the second side of it is the ball's cut back. So to get to the end line of cut back, it's nearly a goal. And if you look at one of the goals AS Monaco scored last night, the dink to the back post, it's a header on the end line, back into play. Leeds don't react, and it's an easy goal. They're poor goals to concede, and there's stuff that's happening continuously. And again, I say the same thing. The common denominator is the centre-half pair. And if you look at Leeds last season, this season, we've conceded 5 or 6 more goals this year than this stage last season. But even last season, we'd conceded too many goals at this stage. The common denominator are the centre-half parents. They're the same. They haven't changed. And the weaknesses are still there. You could run straight through the middle of Leeds pretty easily once you get past the midfield. So getting Tyler Adams back after the Man City game would be a big one. Michael Brown, is Ilian Meslier injured? Ilian Meslier has a glandular fever and has a test tomorrow to see if he'll be okay to rejoin training. They expect that to be a positive result, and then they expect him to move in after that then. So that hopefully, Michael, answers your question. Yeah. So folks, that's pretty much it. Nice press conference. Nice to see us getting back to real football. The World Cup was over and behind us, and we can all move on and crack on with some actual Leeds news. We've got a week to wait. We need to see if all these players get back injury. If you just joined the stream now, the quick rundown: Ilian Meslier will train this week if he passes a test. Matthias Klich was out last night with an injury. Stuart Dallas had a second surgery on his leg just to clean it up. Nothing out of the normal, fully expected. Sinisterra's a couple of weeks away from fitness. Somerville's back on the pitch as of today. Cooper had a calf injury last night. Nothing major, should be fine for Man City. And Jack Harrison, a slight adductor injury and should be back in time. Martin. So unnerving seeing us ripped apart by a guy getting to the byline cut back. Every time, Martin. Every time. But let's hopefully hope that goes away. That goes away. Jesse said they're working on it. Take him at his word. We'll see it. I've said it this way. This is the thing with Jesse Marsch. From an attacking perspective, I love what he's doing. I think we look really, really good attacking. We're scoring loads of goals, scoring great goals. But we look really good attacking side. Defensively, appalling. Absolutely awful, the team defensively. They've got to get that better. They've got to get better players in there. If we are going to buy a left back and a striker in this window, I would love us to see us go out and spend some money on a centre half. I think it's probably an end of season move because it's a bigger move before Leeds do anything there. But we'll have to wait and see. Mick Hunt, Harrison and Meslier, could they be going? No, doesn't look like it at all. Harrison, adductor injury, and Meslier, glandular fever. That's the reason they've been out at the moment. So, no, nothing in that. But Jesse Marsch has said, if you ask him about the transfer market in January, he's going to tell you he doesn't want to talk about it. So, he also said Rod and Victor are busy in the background. Let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. Let's not get dragged into it too early. We'll wait and see. Right, that's it, folks. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow morning with the news. Just an update on the channel, by the way. I will be finished. Friday will be the last video for Christmas, and I'll be back on Boxing Day for UK and St. Stephen's Day for Irish viewers. What's that? 25th, 26th, back on the 27th. Back on the 27th of December, and we'll break on Friday. Okay. There will be a live stream tomorrow night to talk about all of the news this week, and I'm going to see if I can get some people to pop on and have a chat with us as well before we break for the Christmas. Have a great day. If I don't see you tomorrow, have a fantastic weekend. Happy Christmas if I don't see you, but I will be back tomorrow with more news, and I'll see you then. Folks, thanks very much, and see you next time. Bye.